I am Daniel Likis, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He is the author of Not a Real Enemy, no other than Mr. Robert Wolf.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Yes, and welcome to Book 101, Mr. Robert. And can you please introduce yourself?
Okay,
What?
I'm Rob Wolf. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. I'm a radiologist. I'm a neuroradiologist, actually. So my subspecialty is in neuroradiology. I was raised in suburban Detroit area. Went to high school in Detroit. I went to Tufts University undergrad, University of Michigan Medical School, and I did my training in radiology and neuroradiology at Brown and Yale. And then I've been practicing for 30 years now, 33 years. And I'm a recent author. I picked up my dad's book. We talk about the details of how I came about writing this book, but basically in 2016, 2018, my parents' autobiography, my dad's autobiography about himself, was kind of handed to me on a disc, and I converted it to a biography. And 5 years later, with multiple edits, we put out the book. So I'm an author now too. So I'm a radiologist and an author. And we've got this wonderful book out, Not a Real Enemy, the true story of a Hungarian Jewish man's fight for freedom. Very proud of it. It's a very heartfelt project, very meaningful in today's world. We could talk more about that too, of course. And here we are. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Robert. What is the big difference of being a writer and an MD?
I'm an MD. Yeah, I'm a radiologist. So I read X-ray. Right now, I'm reading X-ray and ultrasound for a living too, part time. But I'm also I've done. Yeah, I've read a lot of MRI and CAT scans and plain films, ultrasound, nuclear medicine. I've done all of that over the years. I've even done interventional. It's very hands on. It's interpretation. You have to know your anatomy. You've got to be trained at it, and experience counts. And I work from home. Telemedicine was actually pretty much invented by the the radiology specialty. Goes back 30 years. I was doing telemedicine on call for many, many years when I wasn't in the hospital or in the office working. So, but I live in Florida now. So I've lived half my life in Michigan, half my life in New England, and I'm still licensed in three states, and I work out of Michigan at an outpatient clinic reading from home. That actually, I helped out a friend starting in 2018 when I was still living in Massachusetts, and that helped me get to my book. I obliged, and in between cases, I started rereading my dad's story, and so they're a little bit different. Being an author is completely different, actually, than being a radiologist, where it's all science and math. And being an author, a writer, it requires a grasp of English and in this case, history and getting advice from a lot of people, a lot of very good people on my team. And it's a totally different ball game. The one thing that overlapped though was when I read X-rays, I have two screens. One is on the left; it's got the patient queue, the list of the patients to be read, and on the right are the images that I read, and I dictate right into the computer. It's almost completely hands-free, and that's how I did my dad's book too. On the left was his autobiography, and on the right was the biography that I converted from his autobiography, and I pretty much dictated the whole thing. And editing, the same thing. Editing was some manual editing, but it's also some dictating of the editing. So it saves a little bit of time, and it's a pretty natural process as a radiologist because you dictate for a living. So
Yes, sounds interesting, Mr. Robert. Who influenced you in writing Not a
well,
Real Enemy?
I never really thought that I would have a particular influence, but I mean, I've read a few Holocaust books. I have a few favorites. One is actually a friend of the family. It was family. I mean, she passed away. Agi Rubin, who co-authored her book called Reflections, Auschwitz: Memory and a Life Recreated, and it's a great book, and it's short and sweet. It's a memoir. That was a big influence that somebody that we knew so closely could actually write a book and talk about it. But basically, my parents did their autobiography in the 1970s. They went from pencil and paper to typewriter to a computer to a disc. I think I read a story once, a typewritten version of it, but it was many years ago. And of course, I had my career and family, and things kept me busy, so I didn't really think much of it. But when my dad passed away in 1997, unfortunately, and then my mom in 2016, and we had a historian friend hand me the disc with my dad's story and said, you really should look at this. And it wasn't even until 2018 that I had a chance to get to it because I was so busy taking care of my mom's affairs, etc. So by the time I got to the book, I just started reading. I said, "Oh my God, so many amazing stories of my dad's life, multiple escapes, cloak and dagger stories, on and on and on." And I just couldn't. I couldn't keep it on a computer. I couldn't keep it on a disc. I wanted to share it with the world. So many miracles, so many amazing stories, and but the influence really just came out of the story itself. Plus, it's a heartfelt thing. My parents were very good to me, and I guess this is one way to repay them, even though it's posthumously. It's the least I can do is pay them back by telling the world about the harrowing times in the dark world and how my dad and mom actually navigated through it all. So it's unbelievable. So that was motivation enough. Just the stories themselves within my dad's autobiography.
Wow. So, what are your struggles in writing Not a Real Enemy?
That's a great question. Well, everybody gets a little writer's block. I mean, people procrastinate from time to time, whether it's writing or editing. That can be a struggle for sure. Getting the right help. If you're not a professional writer, I strongly advise people to get help. I do have a great co-author named Janice Harper, who helped me write the book. She redid the book pretty much. Took her about, I don't know, 14, 15 months. She did the history. She read about the culture, and she just did an amazing job with the book. And so I got help from her. I got help with the book cover. Get a little help with social media. You can have the world's greatest book, but if nobody knows about it, then you're not going to sell copies of the book. So I'm on social media across the board. I get help from some people with that. You need some legal help if you're going to do a book and you're going to sign a contract. Legal help is a good idea. Have an attorney look at the contract, of course, and it goes on and on and on. So that's part one. Part two is not all the stories in Not a Real Enemy are so pretty. I mean, we don't no punches pulled. We don't hold back. It's a biography, so everything in the book is truth. But some of the truth is hard. The dark world is hard. What happened to my dad's parents wasn't so great. And there were times then that I'm doing the book, and I had to just sort of put it down for a couple of days and walk away because it's very emotional, and that was a hard thing too. Now, if you're just writing a fiction book or something else, that it may not be quite as emotional as this particular book itself, but it's definitely a struggle going through it and reading about my dad's life and his parents' life and their triumphs and tragedies. But yeah, so that's difficult too. But for the most part, I don't know. I mean, it's concentration, it's patience, a little bit of luck to get the right. If you're lucky, you get a good publishing company like I did, which was Amsterdam Publishers. We picked them up at the beginning of last year, and we just ran with it. They're a great company in the Netherlands, and they've done a great job with the book too.
Yes, definitely. Not a Real Enemy. What behind the title?
Well, another great question. So the original title I had was the Hungarian Papillon, the Hungarian butterfly, which we figured my co-author didn't like that title because she figured the younger audience wouldn't understand the reference. The Papillon, the butterfly, was the true story, and of course a great movie with Steve McQueen and Dustin Hoffman. I think it came out in the 70s, but it was about multiple escapes from Devil's Island and prison islands, prison barges. By the guy's nickname was Papillon or Butterfly. So mine was the Hungarian Papillon, but she talked me out of that because she just said the reference wouldn't be known by as many people as I would like. So Not a Real Enemy. My co-author actually has the definition that there's a lot of slight variations to the definition of the book. Not a Real Enemy actually was my dad was described as not a real enemy by the arrogant Soviets in 1956, the night before my dad's final escape, his fourth. He snuck into the medical center. He was already a doctor by then, an OBGYN, and he had the courage and the risk tolerance. At this point, his risk tolerance was unbelievable. He snuck into the medical center and looked at his own records between security guards, and nobody saw him get in and out, and that was risky enough. But he wanted to make sure that when he was trying to leave the country with my mom, that his dossier was clean, that there was no bounty over his head so that if he was arrested and caught, he wouldn't be in jail the rest of his life, because he did want to practice medicine, but he wanted to practice medicine in the free world, not in a communist country. So the arrogant Russians described him as not a real enemy, where they thought he was neutral. He was just practicing medicine. He wasn't a communist sympathizer. He didn't go along with his friends and people that tried to influence him. But in the end, he was a real enemy, because my mom and my dad, they were patriotic to Hungary and the Jewish faith and Jewish people, but they were not patriotic to the Nazis or the communists. So in the end, they escaped with their skills and talents, and they really were their enemy. Not the traditional sense of the word, with sabotage or armament or anything like that. But in the end, my parents really were the enemy of the Soviets, of the communists, and the Nazis. And so they escaped, and successfully so. Very harrowing escape. All four of them were difficult and all very interesting. But that's how they described him. So, but they were wrong. So it's kind of a paradox, the title. But the theme, not a real enemy, kind of goes throughout the book, that my dad really wasn't an enemy of these people. He was just wrong religion, wrong place, and enslaved for months at a time. While and maybe he was lucky to have that, but he really. And the other title that I was thinking of was the Sixth Book of Moses, and because of all the miracles that my dad had, it's just unbelievable. It's just like the Old Testament. The Sixth Book of Moses being referring to the Old Testament, the 5 books of Moses. And coincidentally, my dad's Hebrew name was Moshe, which is Hebrew for Moses. So he was Moshe ben Yosef, Moses, son of Joseph. So, and so that was another title that I had entertained in my mind. But not a real enemy, I thought was a good. We agreed to that. It describes my dad. It's a chapter in itself, and it's a description, and we just kind of ran with it.
Very well said, Mr. Robert. I think the difference of other Auschwitz biography, just like the book that I read, Dr. Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that book, so I'm in the middle of a couple. This Reflections is one, and then I'm reading The Long Walk, The True Story of a Trek to Freedom by Slavomir Rowitz. Excellent book too. But I mean, they're all different in their own way. Amsterdam Publishers puts out about 3 a month in this genre too, by the way. So there's a lot of good Holocaust related books, before, after, and during, and actually Holocaust books about parents and grandparents and survivors children. So there's a lot of good books coming out by that publishing company as well.
Well, so not a real enemy. How did you craft it?
How did we put it? Well, I mean, it was like I said, we dictated. Excuse me, I dictated from autobiography to biography, and then through the luck of another author, I had a couple of beta reads. Through the luck of another author, she hooked me up with Janice Harper, who's a professional writer out in the Washington State, and she took on the project and spent well over a year to improve the book. Mine was a straightforward biography, but she made it better with parallel stories, converging stories, letters to and from home, conversation, and just really made it into a very nice, very nice novel, a nice book. So it takes a long time. I mean, crafting a book is not easy. There's a lot of steps to it. There's a lot of learning as you go. But it was nice having a professional writer who's actually a book coach too. So she actually, it took a while. It's trial and error, but I finally landed with the right people.
What are the trial and errors that you encountered?
Well, I've had different editors. Like when I started out and I first got the book done, I had an editor once charge me by the hour, which was ridiculous, rather than charge me by the whole job. That was fraught with. That I ended that pretty quickly. So editors trying to find the right agents, trying to query the book before the book was changed, and reaching out to the right agents. That was a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of homework. It's a lot of research. It's difficult. So finding the right people to help you with social media, finding the right people to help me with SEO, search engine optimization, which is an important way to help market your book. I have a website too, robertjwolfmd.com, and I've had some great help with that. Also a YouTube channel I have, Not a Real Enemy by Robert J. Wolf, MD, and help with that too. So, but yeah, slowly but surely with the trial and error, you will fall upon the right people. It just takes time, and and patience. And a lot of people reach out. They try to sell you. They try to pitch you back. They want to help you market the book, and you see that on social media all the time. Some of them are legitimate, some of them aren't. So you got to be able to weed that out too, and focus on who's really going to help you with the book.
Yes, definitely. So, how many days or month you wrote this book?
Well, we started in so like I said, 2018, and it took me a good year to convert it from an autobiography to a biography. I was still up in Massachusetts. Then I moved down to Florida, and I had the book edited and copy edited and polished and then queried. So that's another I don't know 6 months, 8 months, and then I hooked up with Janice, who's the co-author, Janice Harper, and like that was another year and change. And then when she was done with the book, and we finally queried agents and publishers, it wasn't until we got an acceptance from Amsterdam publishers early last year, and the book has been out since October of last year. So it's been a 5 year process. I mean, that's the short answer. It's been about 5 hours, 5 years, excuse me, from when I decided to really work on this project to when it was actually out and a real product.
So, do you think that 5 years is totally polished that make this book phenomenal?
Yeah, 5 years. I mean, maybe it could have been a little less, but I didn't want anybody to rush. The book cover is excellent, for example, and I didn't want the gentleman that did the book cover, who's from Croatia, by the way, and only dealt with me through email, no phone calls, no texts, just through emails, payment through email, electronic, whatever. I didn't, there's no rush with any of that, and the querying process is no rush. I mean, you have to be very patient when you query agents and publishers. You may not hear back from them. You may hear back from them in a delayed fashion, or you might hear back from them immediately. So you've got to accept that that's the case. So, but yeah, 5 solid years before from tip to tip, soup to nuts.
So, do you think what is the flaws of the book?
Well, I mean, it's a solid book. I mean, no book is perfect. I think there's very few flaws. I mean, the beginning could be a little bit different. I suppose we could have started the beginning with one of my dad's escapes, but I think what she did with the beginning is excellent. It builds up to his first escape, and I think, I mean, so you could argue maybe the first chapter or two a little bit slower than the rest of the book, just because it's introducing my father, it's introducing his parents. It's very emotional, though. It brings out the characters so that they weren't just victims. They weren't just people that suffered under persecution. They were real human beings. They had a real life and a real productive life, all of them. And so I don't know if that's a flaw, but building characters is part of it. You can't just build a character in one paragraph. It takes a few pages. But once you get reading this book and you start appreciating what these people are like, the book, it's just people can't put it down. Everybody's saying that they read it and they just can't put it down. It's so riveting.
You want to go back and revise the book, which chapter or which part of the book you want to revise?
To revise, really nothing. I really like the way the book came out. I like the format. I like the style. I like the way the conversations blended. The Janice, like I said, she did parallel stories. She did converging stories, conversations. Excellent job. And right in the middle of and right, it displays Hungarian culture and Hungarian history and food uh, quite adroitly. I mean, it's very well done. So there's really not much I would do that's different. I would say it's hard to make the book shorter now because everything's included, and it's a little longer than most books, but it's only 400 pages, and people are reading through it in some cases 2 days. So
Yes, very well said, Mr. Robert. But before we go on, I want to shout out to the people listening in the United States, especially in the state of Michigan. In Detroit, I got 16% audience share. New Baltimore, 12%. Birmingham at 10%. Grand Rapids at 5%. Warren, Traverse City, Brighton, Holland, West Bloomfield, Plymouth, Garden City, East Point, Dearborn Heights, Jackson, Muskegon, Sturgis, Davidson, Westland, Twin Lakes, Nover, Troy, Leonard, Zealand, Grosse Point, Gladstone, Hastings, Battle Creek, Ann Arbor, and last but not the least, Wyoming. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast because this podcast is created to empower writers all over the world, just like Mr. Robert.
I love it. So I know every one of those cities. And actually, I lived in Davison for a while. I worked in Flint for a while. And I went to medical school at University of Michigan, which is in Ann Arbor. So, and every other city I'm familiar with, I've probably either been or I know people from those cities. So it's wonderful. I mean, I'm in Florida now, and I've lived half my life in Michigan. But my dad, his career, 24-year career in Michigan was in Mount Clemens, suburbia. So very proud to say, Dad became an OBGYN after everything he went through and delivered 10,000 babies in the Detroit area. So a lot of
The-
people knew my dad just from then, and that's redemption. Obviously, that's after everything they've gone through. So, and he was
yes,
so jovial and so nice and polite and so fun. You know, loved his work, but loved people. You would never know what he had been through by his demeanor. He just didn't show any signs of PTSD or anything like that. And fantastic, just amazing how he handled it all and just moved on and had a real life.
yes, that'd be awesome. So, not a real enemy. What is the best highlight?
Well, the escapes are part of it, but that's not all of it. I mean, I don't want to say too much about the book, but his first escape, very first escape from forced labor camp in the middle of nowhere in the mountains, not knowing where he was going, freezing, dogs and guards chasing after him, the potential of getting eaten or injured by other carnivores, other animals out in the woods, bear, wolves, whatever they had. Uh, he's hiding in freezing, prickly shrub, hearing footsteps, on and on and on. So that was his first escape, and I think that's chapter 20. That's right in the middle of the book, and he has four of them, and they're all exciting. But that's the one that kind of stuck out in my head. That was one of my favorite chapters. But he had arguments with armed Russian soldiers during one of his escapes, and he actually won the argument. I mean, he convinced them. He was convinced them that he was there to repair X-ray equipment in Austria, and the guy didn't believe him. And Dad bluffed him. He said, "Well, go ahead and call the hospital, see what they say. You're going to be in a lot of trouble." The guy believed him, but my dad ended up changing his mind, and he escaped. But he turned around and went back to. He was in med school at the time, and for fear of reprisal, he went back to med school, and he was on call the next night, and nobody even missed that he was gone. Another fun subject was he actually missed an escape. He went to the wrong train station, and he thought he was bedeviled. He was unfortunate or unlucky. But everybody who made the right train station, everybody who made that escape got arrested, whereas my dad didn't. And he had a friend who was also a med student who was arrested in that crew, and it really hampered his potential medical career. So my dad was lucky that he wasn't part of that. So there's every chapter's got their own little interesting tidbits in them. So where my dad hid was another. The way my dad had to run, he was running for months. The places he had to work when they were actually rescued at the end of the war. Um, On and on. So, but yeah, his escapes are part of it. But a lot of good dialogue and a lot of meaningful things that come up.
Yes, very well said, Mr. Robert. And according to Douglas Fair, this is a wonderful story. As another have mentioned, this is not just another Holocaust story. So, what is the element that you put in the story that the readers said that, oh, this story?
Great question. Yeah, he wrote a great review, and I'm very grateful. A gentleman I haven't met, but he is from Michigan and living in Texas now, and yeah, I love that review that he said. Yeah, it covers Hungary. So little known Hungary, first of all. I mean, a lot of people that know history, World War II, they know what happened to Pearl Harbor and England and France and Germany, and of course Japan and Okinawa, but not Hungary. Not a lot of people know what happened in Hungary. So it covers a little bit of Romania, a little bit of Poland. It's a very history light book, but it does cover the history at the time. And it covers World War I Hungary all the way to the end of the Hungarian Revolution in 1956, after which my parents escaped. So World War II is not just the Holocaust. It covers the good times too that my dad's parents had in the 1920s when my dad was born, and he had a pretty nice childhood. He was kind of a spoiled kid. He was kind of isolated, but it covers that too. And a lot of the stories, I'm not going to belittle any of these Holocaust stories because they're all important and they shall be told. Um, but it's not just about being in a concentration camp. My dad was in forced labor camps, two of them, and maybe that saved his life because young men were useful at the time. they were able to do some work. They building digging ditches for landmines and building airports and building equipment and actually in some cases just doing useless work just to put them to work as slave laborers. But so it's every Holocaust story is different. This one, it's a little bit of a wider gamut because it covers communist Hungary as well. That's one of the big differences. And a guy who escapes 4 times and has other lucky miracles happen to him. It's just beyond. It's just beyond the story. It's so unbelievable how my dad navigated it. And it was intelligence. It was some luck, the hand of God. Um, but every story is different. This one is definitely unique because it covers a wider range of the history, and it's got so many twists and turns to it that it's hard to believe. It's hard to put down.
Mr. Robert, why you did not wrote the book when your father is still alive?
That's a great question, and I ask myself that. I don't know, pretty much every day. It's just I was never considered myself a writer. I was really never that great at it. I was better at science and math, and I probably didn't have much time. I always, I was practicing medicine, had a family, and I listened to their stories, but I never had that energy or that motivation to do it until after my mom passed away. So, great question. Do I regret it? I guess it's sometimes, but at least I got it done, and it's out there. So I'm proud of that, and hopefully they're looking down from the heavens and pleased with what I did. 10% of my author proceeds, by the way, are going to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. I'm proud to say that's a nice little full circle closure with my parents. My parents were they were very well educated. They were history educators. They were Holocaust educators. They're also well rounded. I mean, they liked museums and art and opera and travel, education, but they were big into teaching history. My mom especially, and so I did this. I wasn't so much part of that because I was raised in America and in the U.S., but I'm just kind of leaving the legacy for my family by bringing out my dad's stories and realizing that the dark world is just it's still out there, and hopefully our society doesn't fall into that type of abyss that my poor parents had to go through for so many years.
Definitely, they're very happy for you. And according to AR, worth every moment and more. Not a real enemy is beautifully written and incredibly moving. So, what are the elements you put in the story that make it beautifully written and incredibly moving?
Well, my dad's personality and his parents' personality. They were raised. They were honorable. They were educated. They contributed to society. My dad had integrity. He had perseverance. He always exercised hope. He was a fair man. He was a smart man, and he had a lot of courage for what he did. So um, that's the moving part, and also the average reader, including myself, can place them into my dad's position and realize that what happened to my dad and his parents could happen to any one of us at any time. It doesn't mean just because he's Jewish. It could be anybody. I mean, it could be a bad neighbor, a bad local government, a bad state government, a bad federal government, a bad foreign government, or a bad business deal. I mean, somebody can turn on you on a dime, change your life overnight, and that's kind of what happened to my dad. It just his life kept. Yeah, he was a man on the run. He had no place to go. Even when he escaped, it's very emotional. I mean, and anybody of you read this book, and even if you don't put yourself in his place, you can appreciate what he had to go through. And a lot of people say I can see myself in this kind of situation. The descriptions in the book are vivid. So and that brings out emotion too. You can actually smell the smells and see the sights and feel the cold, feel the fear, those kind of very palpable emotions. So it's a heavy book, but it's well written, and it's. I mean, I got help with it, and I'm glad because my Janice made a good book better.
Yes, definitely. And according to Wild Thing 3, I cut about. This one will stay with me for a long time. So it means to say it will haunt you with the rest of your life.
Yeah, right. No, yeah, for
Oh
sure.
my goodness. So this is really a boot. So again, what are the elements that you put in the story that make the reader glued to it?
Well, the escapes. We'll go back to that. Just the stories. My dad. He was invited to stay at a house for a while with his friend Frank. They were friendly people. They were Jewish. They were somehow able to mask. They were somehow able to mask their identity. My dad and his friend Frank on the run, that keeps you glued. The war, the way the war ended, the way my dad had to get back home and find out what happened to his parents, that took months. There was no internet, of course, and no cell phones and no lawyers or and the communication was not there that we have now. You just it took forever to find out what happened to his parents. So that keeps you glued. His escapes, of course, um, just the way he navigated through his day to day life. It's hard to. One chapter is well written and it leads you to the next. It's riveting. I mean, it's compelling, and once you pick it up and you start reading the stories, it's hard to put down. So hard
Yes.
hard to describe any one thing, but there's just a lot of good elements in the book that keeps you posted, keeps you into it.
Yes, definitely. So before we go on, Mr. Robert, I want to invite you to listen to my other podcast, Food 101, on our third season with Chef Alessandro, one of the executive chef in one of the five-star hotel in downtown Toronto. So please do listen, Food 101. Plus one more, please do have a copy of my photography book, Spring Flowers and Panoramic View. They are 100% taken in one of the beautiful places in the world, British Columbia, Canada. So please do grab a copy, available on Amazon and leading online bookstores worldwide. Mr. Robert, who are your favorite authors?
Well, I can't really. I used to like Isaac Asimov. Isaac Asimov as a kid. I mean, I really can't point to any single author. And to be honest, one of my favorite books is the Old Testament. Actually, the Exodus chapter of the Old Testament. No surprise there, because it's all about the Israelis escaping and leaving Egypt. So, yeah, Old Testament would be one of them. But I like these two books I just mentioned: the Long Walk and the Reflections books. I'm more reading Holocaust genre right now, just to familiar myself with some fellow authors. But I can't really say I have a particular favorite. A couple of people have mentioned that my book, the writing in my book, was comparable to Follett, Ken Follett, the way my dad's family was chronicled, just over long periods of time. And I found that as a really, really nice compliment.
According to the Bible, why are the Jewish people chosen by God?
That's a great question. I don't. I wish I knew the answer to that, because you read my book and you say they really aren't chosen. I mean, they had to suffer for many years, not only in Egypt but also during World War II and beyond. I mean, the Jewish people did okay in Europe in the late the late 19th century, before World War I broke out, and then it was just kind of things changed a lot. But I don't know what the answer to that is. I'm not sure. Chosen is such a strong word. I mean, I'd like to think that's the case, but I believe in Judeo-Christian values, and I've got a lot of friends that are Christian and Muslim, and I don't think I'm any more chosen than any of them. A lot of people are more religious than me. A lot of people are less religious than me, and it's kind of a strange moniker, a strange label to say that. But so I don't really know the answer to that. I mean, chosen, I don't know. It's a lot of people had to suffer, if you want to consider them chosen. Now, maybe there was some envy and jealousy or some hatred, which is still out there today, unfortunately, and on the rise. So, maybe that fuels the fire. But I'm just a regular guy. I mean, I'm a pretty good doctor. I guess I'm a decent author, as we came out with a good book. Chosen. I'm lucky. I got some intelligence and I have a good job and nice friends and a nice family. That's just satisfying enough to me. So, but that's a great question. I mean, the way people had to suffer, I'm not so sure that that's the right terminology. My job is to circumvent that. My job is to make that go away, to help curtail the rise of racism and anti-Semitism in particular. I'd like to see my book taught in classrooms. I think that's going to be important. Hate is a strong word. Thank God most people don't hate. From my experience, 98, 99% of people, I think, are just sort of just go along, contribute to society and love thy neighbor and enjoy people for who they are, not for what their color is or their religion is. So no, my job is to help curtail that, to educate people. And again, I'm trying to get the book in the bookshelves. It actually is on sale at a few Barnes and Nobles, and it's at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C., I'm proud to say. And after 9/11, the Muslim population for a while was sort of the scapegoat, and of course after the COVID, the COVID pandemic, the Asian people were sort of scapegoats, and it's just it's ignorance. I mean, it's lack of education. So the job is to educate people about what can happen, what the dark world's about, what could happen to you, me, my neighbors, your neighbors, and just to be aware of it and teach your kids that this is wrong.
Yes, definitely.
If I sold 1,000,000 copies of this book, I guess that would be successful. But what if I sell 10,000 copies of this book? I think I would still consider that successful. So that's 10,000 people reading about my dad's story and reading about how horrible the dark world is. So, um, but yeah, I mean, I have a lot of Jewish friends. I have a lot of successful, like I said, Christian friends, and I have more Christian friends than Jewish. It's not even close. But there's only 17 million Jews in the world. So my job is to make sure that we still thrive, or at least my end of it is try that we still thrive and we support each other, and I do support Judeo-Christian values. And actually, my Muslim friends are more religious than I am too, so I support what they do. It's not. It's
Yes. So if you describe your writing, Mr. Robert, what is it?
it's history light. Like I said, it covers the history of Hungary from World War I to the end of the Hungarian Revolution in 1956. So it covers Nazi Hungary, Communist Hungary, both wars, the World War II and the Hungarian Revolution. My dad became an OBGYN, and he became a trauma surgeon overnight with the 2-week war, which was the Hungarian Revolution. So he was a trauma surgeon and OBGYN. So he literally had like 2 weeks without any sleep. That short war had 3,000 deaths, over 3,000 deaths in that war, plus who knows how many casualties and refugees. So it's and then of course it's a biography about my dad, and it's a chronicles my dad's family, ultimately my family, the grandparents I never met, who perished, and it's an adventure. The premise is it's an adventure. There's a lot of different adventures within this book. So it's a history book, biography. Some people call it memoir, but memoir is usually self-written. So in the end, my dad did his autobiography, but since we turned it into a bio, it's really a biography, and it's an adventure.
Yes. So, Mr. Robert, can you please invite our listeners to buy your book?
Absolutely, please do, and from your mouth to God's ears. Yeah, my book, So Not a Real Enemy: The True Story of a Hungarian Jewish Man's Fight for Freedom, is now available at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart. It's slowly but surely getting on the bookshelves at some Barnes and Noble. Hopefully coming to Miami soon, as well as nearby Boca Raton. I'm in Florida, here, southern Florida. It's also on the shelves at Manhattan Beach, California, Barnes and Noble, and Chino Hills, California, Barnes and Noble. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct. Chino or Chino, Chino Hills, and again, it's on sale at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington D.C. If you happen to visit, you'll see the book there. Nice orange, multiple color book cover. Not a Real Enemy. The guy did a great job with the book cover as well. Hopefully, slowly but surely, it's on more bookshelves. I've donated quite a few books. Yad Vashem in Israel, I donated. The Holocaust Museum in Tampa, the Holocaust Museum in Johannesburg, South Africa, and Boca Raton, and some others. I haven't even been able to call these people to follow up on my donations to see what they thought about the book. So, so Not a Real Enemy. The Amazon, easiest way is Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, but you can get it on the bookshelves at other places. And go to your local bookstore and ask about the book, and have it get on their shelves, and hopefully in the classrooms eventually. I am telling people, university people, about the book, including my alma mater, Tufts in Michigan, working at Brown and Yale, and over time, hopefully others too. And I do hope to see this book taught in the classroom.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Robert because this book is for a good cause. This podcast is always support with a meaning. Okay, people. So, and according to Amazon, you have a 61 global ratings. They give you 90% 5-star and 10% 4-star. So, I mean to say, this book is wow, people. So let's support and spread the good things about this book.
Amen.
Amen.
And if you want a little more, I mean, I got my website is robertjwolfmd.com. There's some good videos, good content. I've done a lot of TV interviews and some other podcasts. So most of that is loaded onto my website. YouTube channel I already mentioned. You can check out the videos, a lot of TV interviews. And if you want to write me an email and ask me questions about the book or work out something like a signed copy, I'm happy to sign copy and mail it to somebody. I'm at robertjwolfmd.com. So, but Amazon's a one-click, but you can find out more at the website, robertjwolfmd.com.
Mr. Robert, do you have a Twitter or Instagram or?
I do. I'm on Twitter at robertjwolfmd. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. Both, if you look up Robert J. Wolf MD, you'll find me. No F or E on Wolf. It's just WOLF, Robert J. Wolf MD. I'm on Facebook. I've got a Facebook author page called Not a Real Enemy by Robert Wolf. Like I said, a website, Google my business page, YouTube channel. What am I missing? I think that's about it. That's
yes.
A lot. That's a lot. It's a lot of work.
Yes.
Yeah, robertjwolfmd.com is my website, robertjwolfmd.com.
Okay, then. So, one more question. What is your inspiring message for those people want to write their story?
Well, the inspiration is it's motivational. I mean, this book is highly it's motivational for me because the stories are so good. I just realized that in the most harrowing of times, you can escape. You can get through it. You can do something with your life in spite of odds stacked up against you or ridiculous things happening to you. There's always a way to get through it. And if you have the right attitude, you can survive. That's one inspiration. That's a big inspiration to me. Integrity, determination, the need to be free, self-reliance, but also getting help if once in a while getting help. So there's very many themes in this book and then of course redemption. That's that my dad overcompensated for everything he had to go through by delivering lots of babies and doing a lot of surgery and loving it and doing it in a free world. So anything's possible. Don't sell yourself short. And if you're a writer, don't sell yourself short. And if you're interested in writing, get started. Don't delay, because there will be times of procrastination. Some people are very prolific writers and they can write book after book, page after page. That's not me. I'm probably just the average guy as far as that goes. But at least I made sure over time that we had a quality product, and that's inspirational enough. I mean, you read this book and you'll feel good. You'll say it's a feel good. You put the book down, and you say, wow, a great ending. Great stories.
Yes, it's phenomenal. So, Not a Real Enemy, is this your legacy?
It is, I suppose. I mean, I've got a few other books I'm thinking about writing, but for now, I'm doing a lot of work with this book, but if I do write other books, by far this will be my most important book because of the message of anti-Semitism and the background throughout the book, trying to prevent that, trying to curtail it, and yeah, this will be my legacy to my parents. I don't have any kids and I don't have any sibs. I'm sort of the last one left. I have a few second cousins scattered around the world, Israel and Toronto, and they're all really good people. But for my own parents and my own family, this is my legacy to leave to the world in their honor and in their memory. And like I said, I'm also donating 10% of my proceeds to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. too. So, and that should be an ongoing process as long as, even after I'm gone, that's still going to be in my trust. And hopefully we're able to donate a lot of money over time.
That's be awesome. Okay, Mr. Robert, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. And I hope that you reach a lot of people with this interview. And it's an important book. It's important subject matter, and it's an exciting book. At most, like you said, we're getting rave reviews across the board. So appreciate your time, sir.
Yes. Welcome, people. See you soon.